They want us to sit around and be afraid of ISIS when ISIS is not the threat to us in our everyday life. The real threat to us in our everyday life right here in America, it's realistically not only gun violence, but economic violence. You know, the economic problems that we're facing. And Bernie Sanders had a chance to give a speech today where he really laid this out. He really laid it out. You know, some of the things he said, and I don't have, I was trying to get some clips of that. I need a production assistant, guys. If you guys got anybody who just has the ability to edit videos and cut them down, you know, oh, wait, first, let me start here. Big thanks to Owen. He is cutting up our show video and he's helping me get those up. So thanks to that. But if you guys know somebody who has these videos and they can cut them up, that would help out a lot so I can play them on the show. Now, back to Bernie Sanders. Sorry, I had to do some housekeeping there. Bernie Sanders had a speech today that I thought was brilliant. It's very consistent with his theme. It's very consistent with his message. And one of the things that stands out the most to me is the amount of ear closing that's going on in America, where people, no matter how much Bernie Sanders makes this clear, not just Bernie Sanders, no matter how much economic data makes the arguments for Bernie Sanders very clear, no matter how much historical precedent makes it clear, people are covering their ears and they want us to be afraid of ISIS. They want us to be afraid of everything else. They want us to be more interested. They want us to be more afraid of Trump, so that anything to keep us from ever hearing what Bernie Sanders has to say. So because they won't say it, I'll say it. First of all, this one of the things he said that I like the most is the thing that we've heard the most. And this is the thing that we will not hear from anyone else on the Democratic side, is that if a bank is too big to fail, it is too big to exist. We're not going to hear that from Hillary Clinton. And while they want people like Fox News and MSNBC and CNN, they know they get bigger ratings when they have us breaking news. ISIS has just beheaded someone else. Forget about the fact that Saudi Arabia just beheaded, you know, that's not, we're not afraid of Saudi Arabia. So that's not going to be the headlines. They want to keep you afraid of the latest boogeyman, which is ISIS. They know that's going to get them ratings. But the truth of the matter is ISIS is no more a threat to us than our own gun violence. And our preeminent problem right here in the United States is an economic problem, along with some other things, right? Arguably some other things. But here Bernie Sanders is giving the speech, and I don't know if I saw any. I've checked all of my normal news outlets, and I've yet to find significant reporting on this at all. While we sit around and are fed just rabid repeats of Donald Trump, then ISIS, or Bill Cosby, or whatever else is in the news that day, anything to keep us from having a very serious conversation on the things that affect you and I the most. So he said, if a bank is too big to fail, it is too big to exist, and that greed is destroying the fabric of our nation. I don't have my applause line. I really want to hit the applause line. But here we are. I have to say it one more time for dramatic effect, whatever. But it's just, I have to say it. That clip from Fox News really traverses both the gun issue, the domestic gun violence issue, as well as their ability to ignore what's happening in the lives of real people, people who are even their viewers. The real problem, the real reason people are angry is because of economic reasons. But so long as they can do things like they did in the video and throw in ISIS, or if we do talk about Bernie Sanders, or if we do talk about any type of progressive economic policies, we throw in the secondary boogeyman, which is socialism. But anyway, Bernie Sanders talked about the structural reform needing or calling for structural reforms to the Federal Reserve, making credit rating agencies, nonprofit entities, and tax on speculative investments, making those changes there. He urged an increase in penalties for financial fraud and malfeasance by institutions, calling fraud the business model of Wall Street. That's the part I wanted to read to you. Fraud is the business model of Wall Street. This is, and I kind of jumped the gun because I saw the relevance of the Fox News propaganda machine and distracting us from discussing the things that are relevant. But I might as well go into it now. I'm in it. Fraud is the business model of Wall Street. I was reading an article today by Paul Krugman, his New York Times post, and he starts discussing the type of character that evolves from people who have this amount of wealth and this amount of deference and this amount of influence, both on Wall Street, but inside of Washington, D.C., right? They have direct influence just because of their person and their connections, but then they have another type of direct influence through their money and politics. And we see the type of character that is eroded by this type of wealth. And we see a person like Sheldon Adelson, who now has purchased a newspaper in Las Vegas. He's purchased it for the purposes of getting them to not write stories on him, but writing stories on his political enemies. Sheldon Adelson, which is one of the biggest bankrollers of the Republican Party right now. This is the type of character and the type of greed and the type of fraud that Bernie Sanders is addressing directly by aiming at Wall Street, but also by tackling the very fundamental problem, which is money in politics. The problem is that there is such a vicious cycle that we're fighting against that we can't even have a decent conversation about it in America. There's such a strong, powerful force fighting against any type of change to the fundamental structure of our system that would be beneficial to the average American. There's such a strong force fighting against it that a presidential candidate can't even get a decent conversation going about it without all of the news media outlets covering their ears and shouting ISIS. And while we know we really do have a good grasp on the problem, we do understand it's money in politics. We do understand that it's undue influence by billionaires. We do understand that it's the rigging of the system of the economy from Wall Street. We are not allowed in America to have a conversation about the solution, ever. And that is how it continues, and it continues to grow, and the problem continues to grow. So just like gun violence, the economic violence that we face in America is something that we will never be able to have a reasonable, rational conversation over, because every time we bring it up, they throw out the latest boogeyman, ISIS. They throw out socialism. They throw out whatever is necessary, and they will always find some vultures who are so money hungry that they could put them on TV to say anything and everything just to keep millions of people. We're not talking about a small segment. It's not just Fox News, it's Rush Limbaugh. It's the entire media machine. It's MSNBC, it's CNN. Anything they can do to keep their viewers from ever connecting with the real story, with the real issue. Be afraid of people 2,000 miles away who don't have the capacity to themselves come and attack us. They have the capacity to be an inspiration to a disillusioned person who is down on their luck and they're pissed off, they're angry, they're upset with America because they're down in the trenches and they can't figure out how they're going to make it. So yes, it's easy to find someone like that in America and radicalize them. So instead of fixing the issues here, which would keep people from so easily getting radicalized, they want to turn our attention 2,000 miles away to people, invest another $1 trillion, put boots on the ground just because they want to avoid having the conversations that Bernie Sanders is trying to have us have. I can say the same thing about Black Lives Matter. Anything and everything to avoid us from having the conversations that are necessary about Black Lives Matter, because as I've said throughout the entire summer, into the fall, into today, some of the very fundamental problems. No, so let me start that over. Some of the reason they don't want us to talk about the issues of Black Lives Matter is because we can't begin fixing the problems that Black Lives Matter is talking about without addressing economics. You can't. We can fix some police brutality, yes, but we can't fix the core of the problem without having a conversation. So basically, the moral of the story, if there is one, there is one. The moral of the story is anything and everything to keep us from ever addressing the real problems. The bottom line is that they want to protect the economic status quo. They are, listen, they are okay with Hillary Clinton becoming president because she is going to protect the economic status quo. Now, she may also protect some progressive moves on social issues, but they're okay with that. And when I say they, I mean the people in power, the people with the wealth, the billionaires, the top 1% who run everything in this country. They're okay with Hillary Clinton. They could care less about gay marriage. Go ahead and give us gay marriage. They're okay. You know, they're comfortable with that now. They're comfortable with all the social issues that Hillary Clinton would probably sustain and further. They're not okay with Hillary Clinton ever considering doing any type of economic change. So they are okay with Hillary becoming president. They're okay with Donald Trump becoming president. They're okay with anybody from the Republican Party becoming president. They are okay with Martin O'Malley becoming president. They will not be okay with, and this is why it's just, I'm telling you, the most frustrating thing about it is seeing the conversations that are necessary to actually change the conditions for a lot of Americans, most Americans, the vast majority, the 99% of America, and the media is doing this, or they're doing this. Look at this shiny new thing we should be afraid of.